G'day, Jafffa Adventures. Terry King here. Welcome to the channel. It's now 2023 and here are my top 10 camping hacks for the year. Stick around. For those of you that own a rooftop tent, here's hack number 1 related to your ladder. I've got one roll of glow-in-the-dark anti-slip tape. I picked this up off of eBay for about 18 bucks. I got my rooftop tent ladder in collapsed form, and there's our ladder in expanded form. The treads on the ladder are about 38 mil wide. Our tape is 50 mil wide. The treads are 300 mil wide. There's 8 of them. 300 times 8 is 2.4. We've got 3 meters to play with. Trim it down to size. Cut it to the length of your treads, in my case 300 mil. Use your first cut strip to cut all the subsequent strips, otherwise you might get an additive effect as your measurements run out. Strips all cut, there's our leftovers. Clean up the treads with some wax and grease remover or thinners. Peel your backing tape, orient it so the fluorescent bit is on the front part of your ladder. Line him up and stick him down, just like that. Job done. Impress your friends and family members with your ninja-like skills in being able to locate and ascend and descend your ladder in the dark, even if you've got half a dozen beers on board. Hack number 2 relates to obtaining water. Let's say that your hog bag or behind seat bladder or your jerry cans are empty and you need to fill up. You pull into a small town, you found some faucets in a park, but they're anti-tamper faucets. They don't actually have these little handles on them. That is where one of these little water keys come in handy. You can pick these up at your local hardware store for a few bucks, and they've got different patterns in each of the 4 arms. That'll allow you to pop that into that anti-tamper tap, turn that, and use that as your handle. Furthermore, if you carry yourself a few hose fittings, that'll give you the flexibility to deal with the different faucet ends that you might encounter. But that little sucker is critical, and that's your hack. Hack number 3 relates to your awning or your tent zippers. Have you sat at a beach camp before in your tent and the zips on your tent are sitting there rattling in the wind and jingling away? I've got a solution for that. Get yourself some electrical shrink wrap and shrink it over top of the tabs on your zippers. Yes, the wind will still blow them, but they're not going to make that little metallic tinkle that drives you crazy out in the middle of the night. I've done that to all the zips on our awnings and tent, and it's worked an absolute treat. Hack number 4 is for those of you that own one of these butane stoves. When your cylinders run out and they're completely dry, don't throw them away quite yet because they still have a use. You can pick up one of these little torch heads that affix to the top of that butane cylinder. Now, although the cylinder doesn't have enough juice to drive your stove, it can drive one of these. They just click on like that. Where that comes in handy is if you want to start a fire. Flip him upside down, turn him on, and there you go. You can probably start 3 or 4 campfires with what's left over in that butane cylinder. That's a decent amount left in there. Those little butane nozzles you can pick up off of eBay, and they're only like 15 bucks. They're cheap as chips. Once that butane cylinder is truly empty, then you can toss it in the bin. But when it comes off your stove and there's not enough oomph to boil a kettle, there is still a little bit of life left in it. Hack number 5 relates to the humble camping chair which I'm sitting in. Now these are the collapsible style ones that everybody uses. You just pull them up and they fold up and they're collapsed. The drama comes, of course, when you try to fit this bugger in the bag. It's always a struggle to get all the bits and pieces inside of the bag and get the bag zipped up. And if you're struggling with that, just like I did now, you might actually be folding this sucker up incorrectly. Now, after you've sat in it, you of course grab the 2 corners and you fold it up like that. But what happens is the back of the chair here defaults into this out position. So when you fold it up, you actually want to make sure that that defaults into the collapsed in position, not the out position. That takes all of that back material and stuffs it inside the center of the chair, which means it's not going to foul with your bag. The other thing that it allows is it allows these legs to close up and tighten up on one another a little bit tighter. Now you can see here, all of a sudden, everything tends to fit a whole lot better. I bet you didn't know you could fold a camping chair up incorrectly. Hack number 6 relates to the poles that you often see when you're out camping, typically holding up tarps and the like. What happens with these suckers is when you're set up on a beach camp, they tend to push into the sand, especially if it's really windy out and you've got a lot of tension on the ropes. It'll drive that pole further and further into the sand. It'll release the tension on your ropes, and then your tarp or your tent goes flying away. Now you can buy little stands that sit underneath of these poles, but there's a cheaper hack, and it's something that you've got to hand. No doubt when you're on the beach, you're having a few cold drinks. Could be soft drink, could be beer, whatever, but you'll have empty cans. Take your can, crush it down, and use that can as your stabilizer for your pole. Pole sits on that can. Now it can't push down into the sand. Your ropes stay taut, which means your tarp doesn't blow away on you in the wind. Now when you're pulling your camp down, make sure that you locate each one of your cans and take that sucker with you, because that's the danger with this methodology. If you're not a responsible individual, there'll be crushed cans laying all over the place, and we don't want to see that on the beaches. Along a similar vein, this is the underside of my table. I've got these feet here that I just Velcro to the bottom side of the table. Pull them off when I'm in sandy conditions. There's a little recess in the bottom of that, and that fits right over my table leg. That then prevents my table from sinking down into the sand. When I'm finished, I just stick them back to the underside of the table, and then I can just stow my table away. Hack number 7 relates to the legs on your table and also to our camping poles, which we just saw a little bit earlier. How many times have you undone this little tightening wing nut, extended your legs, and then pulled them out? Then you got to spend the time getting the buggers back in there again. My hack number 7 is to simply paint a little line that tells you when to stop. On my table, I've just got a bit of red paint on the end of the second stage of this leg, and when I'm pulling it out and I see red, I know that's the time to stop and lock it off, because there's only another 50 mil left or so before that leg pulls completely out. That holds true with my camping poles as well. Slide them out until I see the blue, and that's it. I know where to stop. The other advantage you get when you do something like this is every single one of your poles are going to be the exact same length. So when you're setting up your tarp or you're setting up your tent, you don't have the ratty edge going up and down with each of the different poles. Every single pole is exactly the same length. Helps with the stability of the tarp as well. In the instance of my table leg, I actually took the table legs out and I masked them off and painted the end of them. In the instance of my tent or my tarp poles, I simply extended them all out to an equidistant length. Then I took a rattle can and went and that's painted both of those poles, and it's given me that clear marking, as you can see. What's that little furry creature say? Simples. Hack number 8 relates to these taps that you get with your jerry cans. They thread into your jerry can, and they've got a little turny handle here. Now, if you want to turn this on, you can hold it with one hand and wind the tap around the other way. The problem is, how often do you come to this tap with both hands free? Typically, you got something in your hand that you want to fill up with water. And as soon as you turn that tap, the whole spigot bloody turns on you. And it's a giant pain in the ass, and it's annoying. And eventually, as that spigot turns back and forth, as you use it over time, your gasket starts to fail and they start to leak on you. I got a solution for those suckers. Jump onto eBay, and for 20 bucks, you can buy yourself 2 of these spigot taps. Install your spigot tap into your jerry can. They give you 2 silicone rubbers, one for the outside, one for the inside, and then there's a nut that you put on the back of it to hold this in place. That keeps it leak proof. And then when you come up to use your tap and your hands are full and you got a container, simple as that. You can use your pinky if you want to. And because the handle here is turning perpendicular to the tap itself, you don't get that rotational force in the jerry can, and it won't start leaking on you. I've had this tap survive corrugations across half of Australia now, and it's still going strong. Hack number 9 is all about silicone, and no, not the kind that you find in a breast implant. These type things are readily available at any camping shop or on ePray, and they are absolute godsend in terms of space saving. And when you're like us traveling with a rooftop tent, space is of a premium. So you got yourself a silicone kettle, which collapses down flat. You got various size silicone containers. Again, they just close down flat. And you can also get sets that fit inside of one another as well if you want to go down that route. They have silicone ice cube trays and these collapsible wash-up tubs, boink, fold down like that. And for us, where I said space is a premium, check that out. How cool. Now, normally I would give you a 10th hack, and heck, maybe even an 11th hack, but not this time. We're going to stop at 9, and I want to ask you guys, what hacks can you share with me to help me make my camping experience more enjoyable. By the time you guys see this video, we'll be out on the road on a pretty epic journey. I think you could probably call it a half lap. And it'd be wonderful if you had a couple of hacks that I could use. A short one for you this time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Keep the shiny side up. We'll see you next time. Bye now.